Santa Claus and Week 16 of the NFL season are coming to town. We get you set for the fantasy football semifinals with our starts, sits, and sleepers. Let's deck the halls. It's the IBT podcast coming at you.
Cause I've been in tune, out of touch, coming off the bench, trying to shake the funk, check your stat line, see who's up, that over under hit too clutch.
And I'm trying to avoid getting carried away with the jet sweep, sleeping on a trick play, predicting all of my moves like they seen every play. So I'm running it back, head down, get out of my way, and it's for the law with only one thing to do. I guess I'll say a prayer and put it all on the line for you, what they don't know, something they haven't seen. I find a gap off the screen and hit them right in between. Yeah, I got it, and I got it.
Just one thing to say, yeah, what they don't know, something they haven't seen. I'm off that Mingo green, it got me fading between. Yeah, I got it, and I got it. The In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
All right. It is Feel Good Friday, December 22nd, 2023, and the holiday spirit. It's in full force over here. We are wishing you a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Winter Solstice, whatever you're celebrating. We hope it is a great holiday weekend for you. I am Seth Wilcock, and I'm told I'm on the nice list. Once again, this season, I am getting you ready for the fantasy football playoffs, and to do that, I am joined by none other than the biggest of the brains, someone who has nothing last minute to do this weekend at all, the founder of Pros with Joes, the founder of Green Screens Media, Eric Romoff. Happy holidays, Eric. Thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, man, this is going to be a fun one. I got my elf hat working, so ready to cobble together some hot fantasy takes.
Absolutely, man. It is that time of year, and man, semifinals, it came quick. It felt like just yesterday. We're doing mock drafts. We're getting ready for the season, and here we are, week 16, and all the cards are on the table today, and we have a great program planned for the listening audience today. If you want to run through what we have set up here today, Eric.
Yeah, so Fridays, as usual, right? We're going to kick off with a little bit of front and center, talk about that awesome game last night between the Saints and the Rams. Moving on into matchup management, we'll be joined by our friend Jon Juene, taking all of your questions in the chat. So if you have any questions about Week 16, load those up in there now. We'll make sure we get to every single one as we go through the show. And then finally, closing it out with some sure things, sleepers of the week, going a little bit deeper down these rankings and finding a guy that can get you to double digits.
Hell yeah, we hit big last week, so hopefully we can keep that momentum rolling here. And I'll be honest, I didn't ask for a lot for Christmas this year, Eric, because I have everything I need, man. Great staff over here that we work together to put out a lot of great content, and also the IBT family who continues to rock and roll with us throughout the holiday and NFL season. Easiest way to support us this holiday season is like, subscribe, and check out the website as well. We have a lot of great written content for you over there, inbetweenmedia.com. Looks like we got Albert already kicking it off with us today. Good afternoon, IBT. Good afternoon and happy holidays to you, Albert. I hope everything's going good over in your world, man. And Eric, let's go ahead and talk about what you referenced earlier. A pretty fun Thursday night football game here. A little delightful treat between the Rams and the Saints.
Sometimes taking that first step out the door is the hardest thing to do. Give it a chance, you'll be begging for more. Save the spot just for you. We're all somewhere in between.
I thought you'd come to the place where we have some fun. Ain't gotta worry about knowing not what it means. People come and give me another, cause the night is young. At least I so thought.
This just in. Breaking news. Front and center.
All right. And it was the Rams coming out victoriously out in SoFi Stadium 30-22 against the New Orleans Saints. And this was one that if you just looked at the box score, it looks a lot closer than I think it really was. Of course, the Rams, they have that really young defense out there. And, I think sometimes they're giving up some late points in the game. And that's kind of what we saw here. Once again, they dominate on the time possession, put up over 450 yards of total offense in this game. Eric, what were your overall takeaways as an NFL fan, bettor, and fantasy enthusiast?
Yeah, I mean, there's several storylines from this game. First and foremost, Puka Nacua is still a thing. There were many people that were out here in these streets saying that once Cooper Kupp returned, that Puka Nacua was going to turn back into a pumpkin, and it has been anything but. Right, he certainly hasn't been as consistently great as he was when it
Right.
was just him out there, but that upside is still unreal. Right, 9 catches for 164 yards and a score last night, and I think
Unreal.
now over the course of the coming 2 weeks, I think he's like a dozen catches and like 130, 150 yards away from breaking some pretty gaudy rookie records, right? So like Puka Nacua is absolutely here to stay. This kind of, spins into a broader point about the Rams front office. This is a front office that has been doing a lot with very limited draft capital over these
Yes.
last few years.
Yes.
They just continue to find these second and third day gems like a Puka Nacua, like a Kyron Williams, who had a day in his own right. And a lot of this, I mean, it's kind of sidecard to Matthew Stafford, right? Like last year, he was looking like he was the mayor of Washville.
Yeah.
And now he's looking a lot like the Matthew Stafford that won the Super Bowl a few years ago, right? Like literally any guy that you put out there, he can get them involved. He can get them to reach their ceiling potential in terms of output. I mean, you want to talk about arm angles and delivery position,
Right.
his grasp of the offense, his ability to throw guys open, right? Like everything that you're looking for in a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. I mean, Matt Stafford is checking those boxes so far this year.
Yeah, it was great to see from Stafford. And let's talk a little bit more about Puka Nacua and some of the winners on Thursday Night Football in our shower beers. And, um, I think Puka Nacua got lost a little bit this season in the middle of it because we had guys like Rashee Rice and Tank Dell kind of taking over mid-season and onward. But, man, Puka Nacua, if you picked him up, we had him as a in the scope candidate ahead of week 1. So if you were able to get on the train early with him, I mean, you've been riding high, and he's been better than Cooper Kupp since Kupp's been back. Kupp kind of one of the disappointments here, but you kind of have to keep trouting him out there as well here. As far as other winners in this game, Eric, obviously Matthew Stafford comes through for you once again. If you're streaming the position, it was good to see that. Same with Derek Carr, 25 points from Derek Carr this week. So shout out to him as well. And then Chris Olave shows back up, 23.3 PPR points for him. We had a couple surprises here. Demarcus Robinson had another nice game for him. And then Rashid Shaheed, welcome back to the program for him, 18.4 PPR points on the day. As far as Shaheed and Robinson, can you trust one of these guys next week? Up next for the Rams is the Giants, and the Saints will take on the Buccaneers, but they feel like they're a little deflated right now as an organization.
Yeah, I mean, trust is kind of a strong word, right? One of the takeaways is that Tutu Atwell, who had a very good start to the season in his own right, kind of going back to my point earlier about Matthew Stafford, just making all of his guys show out. He was active and available today, and it was still a heavy dose of Demarcus Robinson, right? So I think we've seen him slot into that third receiving option role. So if you're in in need of a flex or kind of a back end wide receiver 3 kind of guy next week, Robinson is in a fine spot against that Giant secondary. And similar can be said with regard to Shaheed. Shaheed probably has a little bit of a lower floor and arguably a higher ceiling, right? He's much more of the home run hitter type. But that matchup against the Tampa Bay secondary is one that has just been hemorrhaging big plays over the course of the season, right? So both these guys are definitely in playable territory. I think the argument is more practical in nature, right? Like if you have advanced to your fantasy football championship, I'm assuming you probably have better options on your roster than these two. But if you're in a pinch, you can definitely fire either of them up.
Okay, all right. We got Toronto Dave in the chat. He's ready to get holly and
Oh.
jolly up there in the great country of Canada, saying the need for Shaheed. We appreciate you, Dave. We got a need for you as well over here. Hello, handsomes, and Merry Christmas coming from Dee
Qué
Dee.
lindo.
Dee Dee, thanks so much for joining us here on this Feel Good Friday. And we got Jamie in the chat as well.
Oui.
What's up, fellas? Good to see you, Jamie. Hope you're having a great holiday season and relaxing as we head into the weekend. A couple losers here, nothing too crazy. We did talk about Cooper Kupp. The only point I want to make with Kupp, he's getting up there in age, and we're seeing the injuries, present this season, last season as well. If you set in a vacuum right now in 2024 redrafts, who goes ahead of him? Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp? Who you taking as the first Rams wide receiver off the board, Eric?
Who I'm taking is probably a bit of a different story, but who I think will go first is probably Puka Nacua, right? Like we
Okay.
know that fantasy managers love to chase the most recent thing that they've seen, and most recently they're likely to have seen Puka Nacua going off. We also know that fantasy managers tend to be infatuated with youth. So there are
Yes, sir.
several things working in Puka Nacua's favor that will sort of vault him up the pre-draft rankings for next season. But honestly, like, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we see, to use a lazy analogy, like a Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods situation from a few years ago, where they're both being drafted as startable pieces and relatively close to each other.
Yeah, I could maybe see like early third round, late second round for Puka, and then maybe a little bit further down as well.
Yeah,
We got
makes
Jamie
sense.
in the chat saying your graphics sucked me in. We need more curse words in our life. Yeah, man. Sometimes you just gotta drop a fuck. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just gotta
Gotta let
say
it
it.
fly, man.
Yeah, gotta let it fly. We got Andrea in the chat. What's up, Andrea? Saying hi, everyone. Merry Christmas. So great to hear from you, Andrea. Hope you're having a great holiday season wherever you're tuning in from as well. Only other loser here, and I don't think there's much to take away. Alvin Kamara, just kind of written out of this game script. They get down, and instead of Derek Carr, reverting back to captain check down, it was a lot of throws down the field. We're seeing the Rams a little bit exposed with some of those deeper shots to Shaheed. A.T. Perry, your guy, had a nice grab in this one as well. So really good to see that. Any other final takeaways from Thursday Night Football before we get to the people's questions here in the chat, Eric?
Just a shout out to Derek Carr and Chris Olave seemingly finally getting on the same page, right? I feel like I've been on an island advocating for Olave all season. He has always been the leader in air yards. He's also been the leader in unrealized air yards. But week over week, the last like month or so, it feels like that timing and rhythm and sense of connection between these two players has really gotten into a nice spot. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Chris Olave on a ton of fantasy championship teams this year.
Yeah, it's crazy because I've been kind of the guy, even really since, back in the summer, man, saying hit the pause button on Chris Olave. I think his ADP was a little inflated. I think we're still kind of seeing that now. Like, he's not
a monster.
He isn't living up to the wide receiver 1 ADP he had earlier this season. Let's be honest. He isn't, but he's still been rock solid, especially down the stretch here. I know I was kind of hitting the panic button. I think it might have been like week 7, week 8 when we had Pat Fitzmaurice on the program. And Pat came in and said, hey, man, take it easy. He's still getting double-digit targets every week, and that's going to happen when, no Michael Thomas. I think we kind of forgot about Michael Thomas a little bit. Like, he's a guy we haven't seen it in a couple weeks. I don't know if we'll ever see him back on the field for the Saints, but Chris Olave certified that dude for sure. I'm seeing some questions come in, so let's go ahead and jump into matchup management and talk a little bit more about them and help the great IBT family members out.
Who you got?
Matchup management.
Who's it gonna be?
All right, matchup management. Who's it going to be? We're going to tell you that here, and we're getting our guest loaded up here. Not seeing John come through, but John, if you want to refresh and come back in with us, and hopefully we can have your help answering some questions here. First one up, I'm seeing Eric. Let's talk a little bit about it before we jump into breaking down this entire slate. It's one from Andrea. She needs 2 here. It's Raheem Mostert, Isaiah Pacheco, Bijan Robinson, and Jarrett McKinnon. This is a full point PPR league. Wow, a lot of great options here. Really like putting you to the test. Do you really sit your first round pick in Bijan Robinson, Eric?
I do not know. Of these two, I would go with Mostert and Bijan. Um, yeah, I mean, look, Pacheco has been an absolute force when he's been on the field.
Certainly.
Looks like he's going to make a return this week. But also, we don't know for sure if Kansas City is going to lean on him in the way that they were previously in this first game back from injury. Right? I think it's safe to say they've gotten satisfactory performance out of the guys behind him in the weeks that he was absent. So, for me, I mean, these are all elite options, right? Like we can kind of set McKinnon aside. He's really a contingency if Pacheco didn't play. But
Yeah,
of these three, I
absolutely.
mean, these are all guys that are, top 20 flex options. So not really a bad decision to be made in the
Yeah.
bunch. But if I have to make one, if there's a little bit of uncertainty around Pacheco's workload, he'll be the one that I'll put on the bench.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. Just err on the side of caution here, especially in week number 16 with fantasy football championships on the line. I think we got John queued up here, so we're going to go ahead and throw him in here. What's up, John? You got us coming through?
John. What's up, John?
All right. Still a couple issues on John's end. We'll throw him back in the back end there. The only thing I'll say, man, are you trusting Bijan Robinson this week, Eric? Because we saw Arthur Smith got fined finally today for what happened in week number 7. They're not playing him. We didn't see a great performance out of him last week as well. And it's the Colts, which a very solid matchup, but not the not one that we're running to as well.
Yeah, I'm fine with it, right? Like, for me, talent tends to win out a lot, and obviously Bijan is an all-world athlete and prospect heading into the season. And I think I've said this before on this show, right? Like, I think a lot of head coaches and GMs in this league operate from a position of scarcity and self-preservation. And after everything that's happened with Arthur Smith over the course of the season, and certainly in the last week, I mean, I think there's got to be a point where the light bulb has to go off that, even if you want to be this guy that, is playing 5D chess and knows better than everyone, at a certain point, putting the ball in your best player's hands is the best way to ensure your job security in this league. And I think this week is arguably that point.
Yes, I'm with you there. Let's go ahead. If you guys have any more questions, let us know in the chat. Let's break down this slate a little bit more. John, go ahead and try and join from your mobile device if you want to try to get over here. We can have your input as well. But Eric, is there any one game you're kind of running from this week? Last week, I was kind of in here saying I don't want any part of this Atlanta Falcons Carolina Panthers game. It was kind of a slogfest in the rain there in Carolina, so kind of scared of that one last week. And now this week, I'm seeing two on the slate that really say, hey, I don't think I want much fantasy exposure to them. Any guesses what those games might be, Eric?
Ooh, I get to guess.
Yes,
I
guessing
will
game.
guess that you would say, what would he say? I think you'll say Houston and Cleveland,
Ooh, no.
as well as, okay. What about Cincinnati and your Steelers?
Yes, that is okay. Yes, that
Okay.
is exactly where I'm going with Cincy and Steelers. Like, just bad vibes in the Berg right now. Bad vibes. George Pickens doesn't want to block, afraid of getting injured. I hope they sit him down this week. And just overall, like, not a really great vibes and chemistry coming from that team. No Jamar Chase in this to take off the top of that Pittsburgh defense as well. So yeah, I'm kind of staying clear of this one a little bit. Let's see if we can't bring our guest in as well right now. And all right, I think we got him up.
Hey.
He is the host and producer of Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast, a writer for Jets Pass. We love some frisky Jets over here. He's Jon Juene. What's up, John?
What's going on, Seth? What's up, Eric? Sorry about the connection issues, guys, but glad to finally be on with you.
Hey, absolutely.
Glad we made it
Absolutely,
through.
man. We appreciate it nonetheless. How are you feeling as we head into the semifinals of fantasy football season?
Yeah, man. It's been a up and down season. A lot of adjusting that's had to happen on the fly between some of the injuries and things. And, last week, outside of the 4 teams that I had earned a bye week, I was eliminated from all my playoffs, round
man.
1 of the playoffs. I had a team with CMC and Puka Nacua that Lamar Jackson that's not in the final or not in
Oh,
the playoffs. So it was just a rough year overall for me from that kind of standpoint. But 'tis the game we play, right? I've heard this quote. Sorry about that. I've heard this quote plenty of times before about fantasy, where it's like there's no losing, there's no winning and losing in fantasy. It's just losing and the relief of not losing. that's that's what it's kind of felt like this year.
I feel you, man. You're not alone. It's definitely been a season of pivoting. We're looking at the week number 16 slate right now. We're talking about kind of games that we don't want any part of. The first one that we talked about was Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. Just, classic divisional tilt there in the AFC North, trying to stay away from that. I'm also kind of scared of this shit show on Sunday Night Football, New England against Denver. Lowest total on the slate, 34 points. And New England kind of knows how to take the best weapons away from opposing offenses, i.e. Cortland Sutton in this one. Any hesitation from you to play any of these Denver Broncos? I don't like what we saw of Javonte Williams last week. Can you trust him? Can you trust Russ and Cortland Sutton in this one?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And that game, is interesting because Denver is clearly the favorites, from a totals, Vegas perspective. But when you look at the fantasy side, like the only pieces that I really want to play, the ones I'm excited about, are on the New England side. Hunter Henry, Ezekiel
Yeah.
Elliott.
Yep.
So Javonte Williams is tough to trust. I see him as an RB3 this week in PPR leagues. Cortland Sutton, I think you can probably get away with starting him. But to your point, right, like Belichick and that defensive staff, they're going to take away what you do best. And if that is Cortland Sutton, which it has been for the Denver Broncos pass offense all year, that's one where you probably have the most angst about. But
Yeah.
in terms, if you look at the season, Cortland Sutton's been very solid, right? I mean, he's had double-digit games in every game basically except for two, and that was against the New York Jets and I forget one other defense, which we I think it was Cleveland at the time, which we understood to be they were operating as one of the best pass defenses in the league at that time.
Certainly.
So he's been very solid in all of his games outside of times where he has bad matchups. New England over their last 3 games allowed the 24th most PPR points to the wide receiver position. So I basically look at it as you've got a wide receiver 2, which Cortland Sutton's been all year, going into a matchup where New England's allowing people to finish as a wide receiver 2. So, just doing some quick, logic or application of logic there, you would assume that Cortland Sutton has a high probability of finishing as a wide receiver 2.
Okay, I like it. Eric, any thoughts for you here on this matchup and any other matchups you might be trying to avoid or interject yourself into it and reap the rewards here in week number 16?
Yeah, I tend to agree with John that that we're probably looking at a nice, steady wide receiver 2 type of performance from Cortland Sutton. New England's been tough against the wide receivers, but they are allowing the 8th highest catch rate to the position on the season, and
Oh,
we know
wow.
there's
Okay.
plenty of volume there. So, I mean, look, the ceiling might be limited a bit. They might not need to score a ton to win this game. So, that upside's capped. But I think if you've made it this far with Sutton, you can chalk them up for like a nice, steady double digit kind of performance. I alluded to my other game that I'm avoiding in answering your trivia question. This game against the Browns and the Texans is going to be an absolute mud patch. There isn't a whole lot of fantasy production coming out of teams facing the Browns in general. And then you look at the multitude of guys that the Texans are going to be missing. Another week without CJ Stroud, another week without Nico Collins, several guys on the defensive side. Like, this is one that sets up perfectly for the Browns to do exactly what they want to do, right? Like, they want to run the ball down someone's throat. They want to control the clock. I wouldn't be surprised if, the first team to 10 wins this one. So don't have a whole lot of exciting things to say about what is, potentially a playoff matchup between these two teams. So, that's one that I'm looking to avoid. In terms of games that I'm loading up on, I'm finding myself on one side of a lot of games. I love the Bears side of that game against Arizona.
Yep.
I love the Jet side of that game against the Commanders.
Let's go, baby.
But there aren't a ton of games that are just going to be like these huge slugfest, kind of scoring bonanzas, right? Maybe if you want to talk about the Miami Dallas game, you can. I mean, I'm kind of worried about Dallas's ability to put points up on the road. They haven't shown us much of that
Yeah.
ability
Yep.
so far this
Yep.
season. So, it's looking like there's going to be a lot of, kind of skinny stacks, one-way stacks in my DFS builds this week.
It's interesting. You were also off your Texans last week, and I found a little bit of value there with Singletary. I kind of like, I'll talk about him later, but I like Joe Flacco a little bit in that Cleveland matchup. I also potentially like Devin Singletary again to get a ton of volume down there in Houston. And we've coined this term this year, like fake blowouts, and that's or fake shootouts, and I think that's what potentially this Miami Dallas game could be. We think it's going to be high scoring, but hey, Miami's defense has become a top 5 defense here in the latter half of the season. The Cowboys, when they want to show up, they are also. So, love that discussion there. Let's get to a couple questions here in the chat. Jamie saying, I'm still alive in 10 playoffs out of 15 I made. Congrats, Jamie. Don't think I have any start-sit questions, but I'll hang out and listen anyways. We appreciate it, man. Obviously, you're listening to some good analysts to make sure you have the right people in your lineups every single week. And then Andrea saying Isaiah Pacheco or Devonta Smith, full point PPR. John, I want to throw it over to you, man. Eric kind of throwing a little bit of shade on Isaiah Pacheco in what seems to be a good matchup, but there are concerns coming back off the injury, and it wasn't just any injury. Dude got fucking surgery. He was under. He was a little medicated a week or two ago. How do you feel about him or Devonta Smith? Devonta Smith really kind of come on as of late as well, but you never know what you're going to kind of get here when you face the New York Giants. Is it going to be a blowout? Is it going to be something that by halftime the Eagles are just kind of shutting it down, packing it in, and trying to get back to Philly?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I lean Pacheco. You look at this Kansas City offense, I think there's been 2 constants. It's been Travis Kelce as the pass catcher and then Pacheco, in the run game. And I think they do miss him as a part of their offense because he adds an element that they don't really have.
Yeah.
But to answer the question, I tend to lean him. Devonta Smith, he was a guy that I was looking to buy and acquire after the Dallas Goedert injury because it's, kind of well documented.
Certainly.
His splits with and without Dallas Goedert. And we did see, he was still productive last week. I think the game script had a lot to do with that in Seattle's, their inability to cover wide receivers this year. So I look at this matchup and, I'm like wondering, as Dallas Goedert tends to get healthier, is this a situation where Devonta Smith and his opportunities, they trickle back a little bit? And Pacheco, I get it, he just had the surgery, but, some Andy Reid made it sound like he's good to go. Jeff Mueller, who's great at injury analysis on Twitter, he indicated that, he has no concerns about Pacheco as well. So I'll lean Pacheco in this one.
Eric, how do you feel about this one? And I think John makes a great point. We saw really that mid to late season explosion from Devonta Smith, had 3 out of 4 games in 20 PPR points in a row, and then kind of come back to earth the last couple weeks here, still getting double-digit PPR points, but just not that high ceiling. Is that ceiling high here? We've picked on these giant corners, Adoree Jackson and the boys, pretty much all season. Is there enough volume, though, going to be there to feel safe starting Smith?
Not for me, right? And I love how I mentioned all 3 of those guys, including Isaiah Pacheco, as like a top 24 flex option, and you're saying I'm putting shade on his name. Right? It's still Pacheco for me. Look, like in terms of like median scoring, the running back is always going to project out to be a little bit more stable than the wide receiver, especially given John's spot on analysis to call out Devonta Smith's splits when Goddard is on and off the field, right? Like, Devonta Smith is like around a 10-point guy when Dallas Goedert's out there, and he's shooting up close to 20 points per game in that stretch where he wasn't. So, the ceiling is always going to be there with Devonta Smith because he's that type of explosive player. He obviously gets the very soft matchup of the Giants secondary, but I kind of think this is a game where there probably will be some scoring outbursts in the first half for the Eagles, and then they'll look to salt it away. That was look, that was their model that got them to the Super Bowl last year, and they've kind of deviated from that this season.
Yeah,
I think this is
absolutely.
the point where they really want to get back to what worked well for them.
Yeah, I think I'm with you guys. I'm going to go Isaiah Pacheco. The only thing that's kind of interesting here is like the Raiders' run defense earlier in the season, you were firing up everyone against them, and they've kind of turned things around as we've seen late in the season with a lot of defenses. They've gotten a little bit better against the run, but I think a lot of that is just not facing any elite running backs as of late. So I just like this as a really get right spot for the Chiefs. So I'm going to go ahead and back them here. But great question, Andrea. She's got another one for us as well. Isaiah Likely, Monday Night Football against the 49ers, or are you going with Jake Ferguson here against the Miami Dolphins? And what, again, we're kind of calling potentially a fake shootout here, John. I'll be honest. I've been saying it all week. I've been shouting from the rooftops, the chimneys, the North Pole, if you would. I don't trust the Ravens. I think it's going to be a big letdown spot on Monday Night Football. This 49ers defense is absolutely loaded. I think Fred Warner is going to have his way here in the middle of the field with Isaiah Likely.
Yeah, it's interesting. San Francisco, they've been blowing teams out a lot. But if you look, even Arizona last week with I don't even know who was active for them, right? I mean, Marquise Brown left that game. Trey McBride obviously went wild, right? But it was literally just him and James Conner, as the offense for the Arizona Cardinals. And this Baltimore offense is miles ahead of where this Arizona one is. And then you just look at the last 3 weeks, San Francisco is allowing the fourth most PPR points to the position over the last 3 games there. So I look at Likely as, somebody who's stepped up in this offense and filling in this Mark Andrews role admirably. I mean, he's been in on like 80-something% of the routes, which is a very elite number for, a tight end one. And so I have no issues going with Likely in this matchup. Ferguson, I think, Miami 30th against the position over their last 3 games. We're not overly confident in Dallas on the road here. I mean, it's the immovable object versus the unstoppable force, right? Between Dallas, who can't seem to win a game on the road, and Miami, who can't seem to beat a team over 500. So I guess one will have to give this week, but I tend to lean Likely this week.
Okay. All right. I like it. And bringing some engineer talk here. I like that. Bring a little engineer talk here to us on the IBT podcast. Eric, your thoughts here on Likely or Ferguson for our girl, Andrea?
Yeah, this is one of those super annoying questions where they are literally right next to each other on rankings.
Son of a bitch, Andrea.
For me, like I tend to agree with Jon here, right? Like, even in the scenario where you laid out that, Baltimore ends up getting thumped a little bit, like that's more throwing opportunity for this offense, and in turn for Likely, especially with Mitchell being out for the season, now is very clearly the second target option in this offense. And Ferguson, I mean, he's kind of a, I wouldn't say he's an afterthought, but he's certainly a secondary piece in terms of what the Cowboys are trying to do, right? So it's neck and neck. Technically the defense against the tight end is a little bit tougher with San Francisco than it is with Miami. San Francisco is allowing a higher catch rate, and I think that kind of sets up for more of a volume play to just edge out and put Likely ahead for me.
All right. I guess the three of us will agree to disagree there. I'm going to go Ferguson here, but I totally understand why you guys would like Likely. He's been very, very solid in that role here for the Ravens offense. Looks like we got HoovTube in the chat. Bang, bang, Niner gang. Let's go, Hoov. Good to see you. Hoov's from Wisconsin. He's a Niners fan. What the fuck's up with that, man? Like, show some loyalty.
Front runner. Classic front runner.
I think John's actually the first Jets fan we've had on the program all season long, so we appreciate that. I am a newly acquired Jets fan. I'm a 2022 Jets fan. I've come over to the franchise. We actually have Frisky Jet shirts on sale on the website right now, John. So I am. How we feeling? How we feeling it?
I'm just curious. Was it Aaron Rodgers that brought you over?
No, actually, it was the drafting of Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, and Sauce Gardner. Like, I knew
a 2022 Jets fan is a different way of saying I have Breece Hall or Garrett Wilson in Dynasty.
After I saw that draft, I loved those players in it. So I was like, man, I'm gonna back the Jets here a little bit, and I got my Brees Hall jersey. We got some Jets merch out there. So how we'll let you out with this? How are the vibes feeling heading into 2024 as a Jets fan, as a Jets content creator? Obviously, out of playoff contention, Aaron Rodgers, still sparking up a little controversy, but I ride with A-Raj.
Yeah, I mean the controversy isn't really a controversy. I mean Nick Botten's gonna get paid. His contract has been guaranteed 6 weeks since week 1.
He's doing fine.
He'll be fine, right? I mean, anyway, but in terms of the Jets, I think it's kind of a mixed bag, right? A lot of people are concerned that, even if Rodgers does come back, right? Like we saw how bad it was without him. God forbid he suffers another injury. Like this offensive line is terrible. There's not a receiver outside of Garrett Wilson. Brees Hall's underutilized in the sometimes they'll throw him 9 targets and then the next week he'll get like 2, and it's like, what are we doing here? So part of that is frustrating. So as long as Nathaniel Hackett is here, right? This ecosystem that's here outside of this defense and Aaron Rodgers, you don't really feel great about. Brees Hall, Garrett Wilson, you take those guys out of the equation, you don't feel great about. And it's like I think the frustration amongst Jet fans is that you look at other teams, right? Like Cleveland, they've gone through 4 different quarterbacks. They've had offensive line issues. Nick Chubb out of the lineup. They're a 9-win team, right? You could go look at, another team like one escapes me right now, but there are teams out there that are winning with backup quarterbacks. Minnesota, this is the other one I think that I was thinking of, right? Like 7-7, but their season is not over before Christmas, and that's what I think the Jet fan is really feeling, is like this culmination of like 13 years of the season being over before Christmas. I mean, 2015 was the closest that we have been to feeling like, hey, we're going to the playoffs, right? Like last year was feeling really good, but even that one was over before Christmas, right? Like, so 2015, I think, is what most Jet fans probably hang their hat on. And like that team was on the back of like Ryan Fitzpatrick, Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker, Chris Ivory, guys that like were going to go on to either not play for the Jets again or only play like one more year with the Jets. So all in all, it's just been, a tumultuous time being a Jet fan. So I can't say I respect your hustle because you just got here.
I'm new to the train. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes. Hopefully we end up with like a top 3, top 5 pick and we go from there.
There we go. And I will just say, like, Nick Boden, I think he's doing all right. Like, his wife posted a picture on Twitter. Like, he's doing all right. He's got a nice little family going on there. So hopefully he'll be all right. And I hope you have a great holiday season, Jon. Tell us one more time before we get out of here, before we let you out of here and get over to our Short Thing Sleepers of the Week, how we can best support you moving into 2024, our friend.
Yeah, man, I definitely appreciate being here with you guys, Seth and Eric. Definitely appreciate the opportunity. 2023 was a year of a lot of adjustments for me, personal and professional. And so, 2024, I'm just looking to getting back into being very active in the fantasy space, getting back into doing some dynasty content, and some, as well as getting out rankings very early in the season. Probably will have my first set of rankings out shortly after the draft, maybe like May or June. So, yeah. So if you guys, anybody that's familiar with me or my work on Twitter, you can just follow me on Twitter at @therealjonj_FF. Recently changed from the at JR Football Nerd. So if anyone remembers me from that old handle, this is the new one. But obviously, all my work is at the FF Diagnostics Twitter page. From there you can get to our YouTube channel, our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Play. And yeah, man, I'm just excited to be back in the community and make connections again and relationships, and talk to fantastic people like you guys.
Well, we appreciate it, man. We're wishing you and the New York Jets franchise all the greatest gifts here in the new year. So thanks so much for joining us. We'll get you out of here. And guys, let's go ahead and jump into some Sure Things Sleepers of the Week.
Yeah.
It's the sure thing. Sleepers of the week.
All right, this is your thing, Sure Things, Sleepers of the Week. And before we jump in, Eric, looks like we do have some final questions trickling through in the chat. They had to try to beat the buzzer on us. So let's talk about it. We got one from Jamie here. Full PPR start one. Jaden Reed, if active. Chuba Hubbard, guaranteed volume, or Deontay Johnson. All the bad vibes in Pittsburgh, but this guy just keeps catching all the touchdowns. How are we feeling about it, Eric Aromoff?
Yeah, I mean, you answered the question the way you asked the question the way I would answer it, which is the guaranteed volume of Chuba Hubbard. I mean, look, like it's such a stable projection for a workhorse running back. Deontay Johnson would probably be my second choice here overall.
Ooh,
surprisingly enough, the Carolina secondary is a little bit better than people tend to think they are. And obviously Deontay Johnson is like the stabilizing force in this pass game, right? So both of them are safe options.
That's terrible to say.
I know. Both are safe. I think that Hubbard's a little bit safer. So that would be the way I lean.
Yeah, I think I'm with you here. Green Bay's run defense has just been atrocious all season long. They can't seem to stop, really anybody. So until Joe Barry is no longer the defensive coordinator there, I will ride running backs against him. And shout out Chuba Hubbard, man. He's had a really, really solid season, getting all the volume over there. And it's the same thing with Devin Singletary. We didn't get to our starts of the week in the program, but he is my running back start of the week this week, a week after calling my Sure Thing sleeper of the week. And look, dude, if you're going to get 20 plus carries in this league and, you're not an absolute dog shit player, I think you have to be considered in lineups here. So I think if Jaden Reed did play and we got, some news that he was going to be fully healthy, I would maybe consider going him. But it's risky. So, and, as we always talk about, somehow Carolina has a good ass pass defense. No idea how. Here we got one from Paul. Need help with my lineup. 2 quarterbacks league, full PPR. Minshew, DJ, Evans, Rachaad White, CMC, Njoku, DK Mullins. His bench, Trevor Lawrence, Noah Brown, Dalton Schultz, Evan Ingram, and Connor look good. Okay, so we're kind of diving into his lineup here. I don't know if I can sit Evan Ingram. I guess you kind of have to, though, if it is just a full PP. Damn, that one's close. I guess with no T-Law. I get it. Yeah, I don't think
I was going to say, I think some of these questions are going to be answered for you, right? Like we'll know the status of T-Law early enough to where if he's out, obviously you're not putting him in. And that also downgrades Ingram to the point where he's behind Njoku, who has been absolutely white hot over these last few weeks. So we're really talking about a decision between Connor and Noah Brown, between I guess Rachaad White. Yeah, I'm not sitting DK or Rachaad White for Connor or for Noah Brown.
Yeah, I think you got it right here, Paul. Like I said, only thing I would maybe consider is if Lawrence is somehow active in this, maybe I get Ingram into that lineup. But hell, Njoku's been a hell of a tight end here down the stretch as well. So good on you, Paul. Appreciate the question, buddy. Hope you have a great holiday season here. And
obviously, Lawrence goes in over Mullins if he's playing.
Yes, 100%. Garrett Wilson or Drake London. So I actually have Garrett Wilson as my wide receiver start of the week here. Canned, and I'll tell you what, it's like the Chainsmokers song. If we go down together, because I'm riding with Garrett Wilson here. There's not a lot to like about Trevor Siemian, Eric. Obviously, the guy, you look at a lot of the advanced metrics, he's towards the bottom of the 60 plus quarterbacks we've seen suit up here this season and throw an NFL pass. However, there is one thing to like about Trevor Siemian: 115.4 passer rating versus zone coverage. Who runs some of the most zone coverage in the league? That's the Washington Commanders. They actually allow 109.6 passer rating, the third highest in the NFL when playing in zone coverage. So I'm expecting a lot of zone from them. They only run man about 38% of the time, and I think that helps Siemian lock on to Garrett Wilson here. And this is, I think, maybe one of the funniest stats I've uncovered this season. There have been 16 top 40 points per reception wide receivers to go against the Commanders this season. Do you want to know how many have scored double-digit PPR points, Eric, out of the 16?
For the sake of the joke, I'll say 16.
16, 100% of the time, a top 40 wide receiver is at least getting that double-digit PPR mark for you. So I know it's Simeon. I know it's the frisky New York Jets, but you got to fire him up here over Drake London. I don't hate London this week, but, we kind of know the story with this guy, man. Like, he's a talented receiver. We saw him have a career day here just a couple weeks ago in week number 14, and then kind of back to earth here last week. So yeah, I think I have to go against Drake London. It's Indianapolis, which is a better matchup, but I'm still not expecting, fireworks or anything here, especially with Taylor Heineke now back under center.
Yeah, this is a tougher call than I think it really should be. For the record, I will go with Garrett Wilson, but man, do I love how this week sets up for Drake London, right? The argument around each of these is a bit more circumstantial in nature. Like you mentioned, we didn't get to our plays of the week. My play of the week was none other than Breece Hall, and I think we're probably going to see a heavy dose of the ground game in this one for the Jets, right? So I would say it's more of a limiting factor than a concern for Garrett Wilson, right? Like they're obviously not only going to run the ball, and when they pass it, he has a statistically and functionally exponentially better chance of being the recipient of that target than anyone else in this wide receiver core. So Wilson is in a fantastic spot, right? The Commanders secondary has been an absolute turnstile, but you can also say the same thing about the perimeter defense within this Colts secondary. Jalen Johnson, Juju Brents. I mean, like they're a little bit of a plus matchup in terms of catch rate and yards per reception, but they are just giving up touchdowns left and right. So to the theory earlier that this is the week where, Arthur Smith folds his hand and says, fine, I'll quit being the weirdo and I'll give my best players the ball. Like I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see like an offensive bonanza from the Falcons side. So it's Wilson of the two, but I really love this week for Drake London.
Okay, I like it. And is this Candy Gonzalez? Is that this gentleman or person's name here in the chat? Candy Gonzalez? Is that how you pronounce that?
Conde? Yeah, let's go with Candy.
That is a great name,
season, right?
Yeah, that's a great name, Candy Gonzalez. I hope that's right, man. And Merry Christmas to you, man. Thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you subscribe to the channel and come back and hang out with us again. And then we got our guy HoopTube, Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Christian McCaffrey. Hard questions only here from our guy Hoop. Andrea saying Bears or Green Bay defense. Man, have these Bears been a great defense down the stretch? They're facing the Arizona Cardinals here in Chicago, in the Windy City. A little bit of rain potentially in the forecast there in Chicago as well. So, I think I initially leaned there, but it is Carolina Panthers that the Green Bay defense is going up against. But again, can you fucking trust Joe Barry? That's the question. Like this guy, I don't know why Matt LaFleur wants to go down with the ship. Like, again, I know I just said if we go down, that we go down together, but like, why is Matt LaFleur saying I'm going down with this guy? He's dog shit. What's the deal here, Eric? Where you go?
Yeah, I mean, of the two, it's the Bears by a wide margin. These are both situations that I would say are among the highest in terms of likelihood of creating turnovers. So that's kind of a wash in this equation.
Yeah.
But the Bears defense is significantly more talented and has better play calling on their side. In terms of your question about why LaFleur is sticking with Barry, I mean, the Packers are kind of, at least by most people's standards, playing, punching above their weight class. They're having a better season than most people anticipated.
For sure. Yeah.
So like there isn't that heat on LaFleur to make some sort of splashy move. And also the Packers are fairly conservative when it comes to play caller changes, coaching changes. They rarely make those types of moves in season. So I think it speaks more to the culture of that front office than it does, any sort of vote of confidence in Barry.
Yeah, fair enough. Here we got Soggy Danger 1. Not Soggy Danger 2, not Soggy Danger 3.
Number 1.
I was number one. All right, Brandon Ayuk or Slim Reaper. Brandon Ayuk's going up against Baltimore here in the Monday night matchup. I know they've been better. A pretty tough matchup for just opposing offenses in general. Baltimore, that is. But how do you get away from Brandon Ayuk? How do you do it with the potential ceiling he has each and every week? We've already kind of touched a little bit more on the Slim Reaper, Devonta Smith. Is this a game Eagles get up by halftime? We don't see much action. Dallas Goedert back in the thick of it as well, taking that target share back down to a little more modest level for Devonta Smith there. Where are you going here, Eric?
I am going with Brandon Ayuk. Look, this entire defensive unit for the Ravens is stellar, but they're much more of like a disruption, rush the quarterback, throw people out of their rhythm type of defense, as opposed to a shutdown secondary. Right? They're kind of like right around league average in most of the stats that you would look for
Yeah.
in terms of their ability to defend wide receivers. So it's kind of a neutral matchup for Ayuk in my mind, and his involvement in the offense and this offense's need to continue scoring is much greater than that of Devonta Smith in his week 16 matchup.
Okay, I'm with you there. I'm going Brandon Ayuk.
Dude,
Pick one.
Does
Pick one.
does my guy have a picture of Jerry Jones all dripped out here? Is that what happened here with that last question?
Oh,
Soggy
I think
dog,
that
soggy
is.
danger. My
I think.
guy, dude. We've seen some of the best avatars on YouTube in this chat. We got our guy with young Dirk Nowitzki in there too. Y'all don't miss. You just deliver every time. I love it here.
Yeah, and the YouTube name. So I'll be honest. Very well done there from our guy Soggy. Here's Richard Pickens. Pick one, DFS or defense special teams. I think he meant to say Miami Chiefs or Bears. We just kind of touched on the Bears defense. Their top 7 play for me. However, the Chiefs are against Las Vegas this week. Aiden O'Connell looked really good when we saw him on Thursday Night Football last week, but I still think they're coming back down to earth a little bit. And miss me on Miami defense this week. Like I know they've been stellar. It's hard to get away from them, but this is the top scoring defense or offense they're going against. So no Miami for me. You could make an argument for the Bears, Eric, but I'm still stomping the Chiefs. They've just been such a standout defense all season long.
I will make that argument for the Bears because that is the
Ooh.
way that I would go. Look, like the Chiefs last week put up 7 points against New England, who is the picture of ineptitude on the offensive side, right?
Yeah.
So like, for me with defenses, it really boils down to opportunity to create turnovers, which then statistically lead to defensive scores because the way we score defense is asinine and broken. And I think that the Bears have the greatest statistical chance to score a touchdown defensively this week because you said DFS in front of it. Miami's actually probably one of my favorite DFS defenses this week. No one's going to be on there, and they've got an absolute unit, right? So like we've seen Dak Prescott do some boneheaded shit on the road before, so don't mind going there specifically in the DFS context for season long. I'll go with the Bears.
Okay, all right. And Soggy Danger said that is dripped out. Jerry, thanks, fellas. We appreciate you, Soggy Danger, man. Hope you're subscribed to the channel. Come back to hang out with us again. Same with you, Richard. Thanks for the question, buddy. And here we got Candy again. Austin Eckler or Jerome Ford. Wow. If there's one question that puts Eric Romoff on the spot this week, it's right here, baby, because Eric, we've been saying since the last Thursday night game that we don't really trust Austin Eckler heading into this week. You like Jerome Ford this week. You cut a little bit of a promo on the guy on Tuesday. So how do you shake this one out here? Ford obviously going against Houston in a game you don't necessarily love, but Austin Eckler against Buffalo, who all the vibes are heading in the right direction for Sean McDermott and crew.
Yeah, so I'm alone on Jerome Ford Island in general. Yeah. I do think we see close to a ceiling week out of him this week against that depleted Texans defense entirely. Basically, all of their statistical leaders in each layer of their defense is going to be out. But even with that being the case, it's still Austin Eckler for me, right? The thing that puts me over the top, Austin Eckler, while he's ceded an incremental amount of work to Spiller and to a lesser extent Kelly, down these last few games, he's still very much so A, the leader in this backfield, and B, the primary choice when it comes to third down, when it comes to hurry up, when it comes to them playing catch up, as they likely will as 13-point underdogs this week. And surprisingly enough, I mean, even though Buffalo just held the Dallas running backs to like 15 yards receiving, they're still fourth in the league in terms of receiving yards allowed to opposing running backs. They've got several games where they're giving up 50, 60, 80 receiving yards to running backs. That is very much so Austin Eckler's territory. While the offense might struggle, he still carries a ton of touchdown equity week in and week out. So I'm very much so bullish on Jerome Ford, but of these two, I'm sticking with the Eckler side.
Yeah, I think it's just I think more guaranteed production. Like Kareem Hunt just takes a lot of these high value touches away from Jerome Ford there. So yeah, I'm plugging my nose and starting Austin Eckler, but I don't feel great about it, Candy.
You'll be
Sorry we
fine.
can't. Yeah, sorry we can't have more good vibes coming into you. Eric feels confident though for you. Here's one from Jamie: Roshan Johnson or the less talented Khalil Herbert. Foreman obviously not playing this week due to some personal reasons. Hope he's okay and everything's going good with his family during this holiday season. Where do you go here, Eric? Because I think it's got to be Roshan Johnson. We've just seen the upside in the receiving game a little bit more. And like, hell, now's the time to test this kid out. Like, what do you have in him? Do you have to go draft another running back on day 2 next year? Like, that's what we need to figure out. And I think the Bears know that.
Yep, and that is why I will also go with Roshan Johnson, right? Not to mention that, Khalil Herbert has been back and available in this offense for 3 or 4 weeks now, and just about every single week his snap share is falling, his opportunity share is falling.
Yep.
He's not seeing nearly as many targets as he once did, right? So like the winds are already kind of shifting in that direction, and specifically, like I mentioned earlier, I love the Chicago side of this game, so wouldn't be surprised to see a spike week out of Roshan Johnson.
Yeah, I had my brother pick him up in the semifinals. I'm playing him in against. I was like, I don't know how I feel about him starting Roshan against me. Ended up taking him out of his lineup anyways. But yeah, and honestly, like, I don't want to bury Khalil Herbert, especially the holiday season. But
No,
for all the people that said a year ago, oh, Khalil Herbert is so much better than Dave Montgomery. No, he's not. He never was. Maybe he had fresher legs at one point. I think Khalil Herbert's just a guy. I'm sorry about it. Sorry about it. Justin, Tyler Boyd or Noah Brown. This one's easy for me. It's Noah Brown. Anytime you get a guy, do we have confirmation, Nico?
Not confirmation, but expected to miss was the latest reporting I saw.
Okay. You are the Texans guy. You're plugged in over there. So I'll give you credit there. But I mean, look, man, Noah Brown seeing a plus 25% target share with no Nico Collins out there. And Case Keenum, like, you could do worse than him. Like, I think we were all surprised that he got the start last week over our guy Davis Dougie Mills. But look, man, Case Keenum's beloved in this city. He's beloved in Houston, and I think he can get it done here against Cleveland, which been a little more shaky down the stretch with their defense. So I'm confident in Noah Brown. I don't think I can trust Tyler Boyd, even though there is no Jamar Chase.
Breaking news. Nico Collins got in a limited session today.
Okay.
So we'll probably be watching this one down to the wire. But nonetheless, even if Nico Collins is out there, Noah Brown is clearly operating as the number 2 in this offense. And look, I mean, like, Boyd should see more volume without Jamar Chase out there. But I think that this is going to be a rough week for the Bengals offense overall, right? You got Joey Porter Jr. just able to do whatever he wants, not having to account for Chase and Higgins. I think Cincinnati's going to have a hard time moving the ball, so I'd still go nowhere here, even if Nico Collins returns.
Yep. Right there. We got you, Justin. We appreciate the question, man. Thanks so much for joining us in your Feel Good Friday. We hope you subscribe to the channel, come back, hang out with us again. And let's see what else we got here. Got Andrea saying, thanks again. Great show. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you, Andrea. We appreciate you. Which RBs to start here for Richard? Achane, Mostert, Bijan, Chandler. You're locking in Mostert 100%. You can't get away from the running back 2 on the season. The touchdown equities are going to be there, even against the Cowboys. So I think it comes down to the rest of them. They're all kind of in that similar range. You like the Falcons here, right? So are you going Bijan?
I am going Bijan. I will look for the latest practice report to see if Alexander Mattison has made his way back in. But assuming it's Ty Chandler, would still start Bijan over him. I mean, you can make an argument for Achane versus Bijan. I'm not going to make that argument where I'm already starting Mostert, right? Like
Yeah.
there's so much diversity in this offense in terms of how they move the ball down the field that I don't want to just like corner off the entirety of the running back side, right? So, in a vacuum, Achane is a little bit closer to Bijan, but in this context, I would go Mostert and Bijan.
Yeah, I'm 100% there with you. I like Ty Chandler this week. I really loved what we saw out of him. But Detroit, you never know kind of what you're going to get there
They're
from
not bad
him
against the
playing
run.
them. So, yeah, I'll go Achan or Mostert and Bijan here for you as well. And then old Toronto Dave asking PPR start one, Jalen Warren, Deontay Johnson, or Jacoby Myers. Here's my follow-up question for you, Dave. Is this the league that you and I are in the championship right now playing together? We got a 2-week championship bout.
He's not making this decision on a championship team, is he?
Dude,
Is he?
I don't know. All I'll say is I'm playing Dave, and
I
I'm
guess if
pretty
it's deep, right?
I know we had Puka Nakua last week and Chris Olave that ripped me a new one. So I'm going into the weekend like in a 50-point hole. So go Jacoby Myers here. Go Jacoby Myers just to get. No, I'm just kidding. Don't go Jacoby Myers. I do like how this sets up for Jalen Warren. It is really hard to trust him, though, a little bit. Just this entire Pittsburgh offense. I think I rolled Deontay Johnson. We know the target share is going to be there. He has a lot of familiar actually with Mason Rudolph going back to his rookie year. If you remember back in 2019, that was the Duck Hodges year. Big Ben had hurt his elbow. And Deontay and Mason had a little bit of a connection there. So I think I'll go Deontay, but hesitantly Eric.
That is how I would go as well. He will see the most of Chidobe Awuzie in his coverage. And to your point, like yes, there's that history where he and Mason were able to do a little bit together, but also just like the way that Deontay Johnson approaches this game and runs his routes, he puts himself in winning positions closer to the line of scrimmage, and that very much so sets up nicely to support a Mason Rudolph type of backup quarterback. So I mean, look, the ceiling is kind of capped on all these guys, but of the lot, I think Deontay is the safest.
Okay. All right. I like it. And here we got Tootsie Pop in the chat. Hi, fam. Good to see you, Rachel. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate you. I saw she was doing some Christmas baking today. So let us know what you're baking, Rachel. We'd love to hear about that. QB who has better PPR points this week, round 1, week 1 playoffs. Love Browning, Flacco. I want to table this one because I'm going to talk about Joe Flacco when we get to our sleepers. So, Richard, I will circle back with this one, but hang with us and I will talk a little bit more about Flacco. Man, that's a tough one. That was a tough one there. Flex play from our guy Ismail, Gabe Davis, Tyler Boyd, or Jake fucking Ferguson. Well, you're not doing Gabe Davis. Can we just say that? I mean, back-to-back donut weeks. What the hell is happening? Tyler Boyd, I know I just kind of poo-pooed on Tyler Boyd a little bit, but he's going back to his hometown of Pittsburgh. He's Pennsylvania kid. Can we get the vibes rolling for T Boyd?
I like how you just poo-pooed on him. You're like, but Narrative Street. I mean, Narrative Street aside, I think it's Tyler Boyd as the safer play. If you are if you're an underdog, if you faced off against someone that fired up like Olave or Puka Nakua, or like I am in one of my leagues, Olave and Puka Nakua.
Yeah,
I mean, Ferguson probably has a bit more upside given his touchdown equity, but for these kind of either or picks, I err on the side of midpoint, and that goes to Tyler Boyd in this case.
Yeah, it's been unfortunate. Like Miami's actually been a bottom 4 matchup for tight ends over these last 4 weeks. So I don't really want to rip out Jake Ferguson this week if I have to. Like I have played the double tight end. I played a tight end in my flex. Actually, last week in one of my my quarterfinal matches, I had Jake Ferguson in the flex. It didn't really work out because the guy I benched for him was Jordan Addison. So yeah, I think it's Tyler Boyd here, but I don't love any of them, honestly. We got Dave saying, appreciate your thoughts, guys. We appreciate you, Dave. Thanks so much, man. Okay, and he's saying it is a different league than what we're playing in against. So glad to hear. I knew Dave was probably in a couple of semifinals, knowing his sharpness over there. Start Derrick Henry.
For sure.
start Derrick Henry or DeAndre Swift. Oh my goodness. This one's kind of tough because Swift's been an absolute fade monster over the last month here. Hasn't had great matchups, hasn't really had that touchdown equity with the tush push being ever so present this season for the Eagles. It is against the Giants on Monday night, though. This kind of programs is one that could potentially be, a gun it and run it type of offense here in the second half for the Eagles. So I do like him there, but it's also a pretty good matchup for Derrick Henry against the Seahawks, who, I don't know, man. Their defense just isn't what it was earlier in the season, despite adding like Leonard Williams and some really good upfront help midseason there.
Yeah, I would like to start both of these players. So Lucius, if this is your flex decision, I would go with Derrick Henry of the two. But if you have a flex option that you could maybe drop Swift into, I'd love to see that posted into the chat. They're both in phenomenal spots. I already detailed how I think we see Philadelphia get back to the shades of their last year Super Bowl self in this game, where they just completely pound the ball down the Giants' throat in the second half. That being said, Derrick Henry walks into the number 7 matchup to opposing running backs in the season. Seattle is still giving up a ton of points to the position. So he would be the choice of the two, but they are both super strong options.
Yeah, I'm with you here, Eric, for Lucius. It's been a little disappointing at times for Derrick Henry, but Seattle defense, even over the last month, has allowed 500 total rushing yards, 2 running backs, and 4 rushing touchdowns as well. So I think there is some really nice upside for Derrick Henry.
25 points a game, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I think you kind of have to go with Seattle there and play Derrick Henry. Any tight end outside that top tier group you seeing have a good week. His options are between Cole Kmet, Dallas Goedert, and Darren Waller. I think I'm firing up Kmet or Goddard. I don't think there's really anyone outside of that group that I'm looking for. Eric, is there anyone outside of that group that you could suggest over one of these plays?
It would be Goddard of this lot.
Okay.
Further down the rankings, I mean, it gets real dicey, right? Like, they're largely just kind of touchdown or bust type of options. Goddard at least has a bit more of an expanded role in the offense overall. So, yeah, I mean, Waller saw the field a ton in that first game, which was unlike him. Maybe there's something kind of building there, but I don't want to risk that in my semis or in my final round.
Yeah, I think I would go Goddard here a little bit. Cole Kmet kind of nicked up coming into this week as well. And Arizona actually been a pretty decent matchup for opposing tight ends as well. So, yeah, I think we're on the same page there. How do you guys feel about Amari Cooper? I'm all right with him, man. Like, I think the Houston secondary, Derek Stingley and the boys have kind of picked things up, but a lot of injuries there on that defense in general that we'll touch here in sleepers. So don't mind him. He's probably a sit it and forget it wide receiver 2 for you, unless you have a lot better options or you're in a real shallow league. Jordan Love or Jared Goff, Eric, how do you feel it for Candy here? Where are we rolling?
Ooh, this one is relatively close.
Yeah, this
I'd
one is tough.
probably err on the side of Jared Goff.
Ooh.
I mean, I don't feel great about it, clearly, as I chew over this decision. But we've seen Jared Goff go out and really make a point of emphasis to move the ball and score the ball through the air in very recent memory. And if nothing else, like I think we're going to see Green Bay really lean on their ground game this week. Probably not the most high scoring affair overall. I mean, these are kind of non-preferred options, but of the two, I mean, I think we've seen a higher flash or a higher ceiling flash for Jared Goff.
Yeah, I think I'm with you as well, man. It's really hard to go against the Carolina secondary for whatever reason right now. So I think I'm with you, Jared Goff. We saw the upside finally again, and he is in Minnesota. He is in a road game, which he hasn't performed great in, but it's indoors. He's been pretty good indoors on the road. It's more the outdoors road games that scares me off Jared Goff. So is Baker Mayfield out there for you, Candy? I would love to fire up Baker Mayfield over these lots. I know in some shallower leagues, he's not quite quite heavily rostered as much in some deeper leagues. So maybe look for a Baker Mayfield, someone like that, maybe a Jake Browning even. I think I'd play over both these guys. So no Jake Browning love, no.
No, I would not.
Okay, all right.
I
Wow.
mean, Mayfield's kind of a fringy call between the two, but I'm very worried about Browning this week.
Lock in Baker Mayfield. Trust the kid. Heisman, 2-time. I'm trusting him. PPR. Week 2 of his playoffs, who would you be a better start? Kraft, Henry, or Goddard? It's Goddard. I think this one's pretty easily Goddard, right, Eric? It's just a tier different. Although I called my shot on Tucker Kraft a couple weeks ago, and he's been great. He's been great, but I think Dallas Goddard, you take the better player on the better offense here. Don't get cute.
That's how I'd go.
Here's one for you, Eric. Should flex Ty Chandler, Devin Achan, Tucker Kraft, Hunter Henry, or you can pick up Antonio Gibson off the waivers?
I would be going Devon Achan here.
It's the upside, right? It's just purely the upside. I think he actually. I think he might. This might be the question. He might have Mostert in his lineup as well. And I know you said you didn't really want to, get all that backfield, but I think it's still against Dallas. They can give up some big plays. So I'm with you. I think it's kind of close between Chandler and Achan. I think they're in that same range. But yeah.
I would err on the side of Achan, even if this is the Mostert lineup. If you want to be a bit more conservative, Chandler is a fine play. I think you're getting a lot more upside with Achan, even if you're rostering Mostert in front of him.
Yeah, I'm there with you as well. Here's someone, Bargustas.
Hey.
Happy holidays, fella.
Salud.
Thanks for the great content. Well, that's a nice little character we got in there as well, Eric.
I know. I was trying to figure out what he's holding over there. Is that like a train, a camera? Who knows?
I was thinking, I don't know. Let us know, Bargustas. But we appreciate.
Happy holidays to you, my guy.
Yeah, happy holidays, man. We hope you're having a great one. Thanks so much for taking some time on your Feel Good Friday to check us out. Candy saying, thanks, guys. You are awesome. You're awesome, Candy. We appreciate the YouTube algorithm bringing you to us today, man. Hope you're subscribed. All right, Eric, let's go ahead. Let's get into some Sure Things sleepers of the week after getting through those questions. Who you got? It's only potentially the second most important week of the year. Glory starts here. Where are we going?
I'm going a little bit deeper than I usually go. Usually I'm the one that kind of like cheaps out and picks the guy that's ranked like 35th or whatever.
A little fringy.
This is a player that I've talked about in terms of in the scope before, but the train rolls on for Jonathan Mingo, my Sure Thing sleeper of the week. I like him to get up over double-digit fantasy points. For me, you can kind of set aside his performance last week in that absolute monsoon of a game that they happened to win. His targets went down to 5 in that game, but prior to that point, 9, 10, he's got a couple 6s in there, 7. He's getting more and more red zone work. And even in that down game, he still was in the mid-20s in terms of his target share overall, right? So they weren't throwing the ball a ton. It seems like, getting Mingo involved and understanding not only what they have in this kid as a prospect, but also how much they can expand his route tree, how much they can get him to develop down the stretch run, as they are very clearly looking to next season, is a point of emphasis for this Carolina coaching staff. And the majority of his coverage is going to be coming from someone called Jalen Jones, who's taken one snap and gave up a long catch on that one this year. But looking back into his prior seasons, I mean, he's usually floating around like a 72, 75% catch rate. So if we're talking about a high target volume day for Jonathan Mingo, has a good chance of hauling in the majority of those in Jalen Jones's coverage. So going a little bit deeper, but we gotta end things on a spicy note as we head into week 16.
Hot tamales for Christmas for Eric. And that's what happens. That's what happens when you're Green Bay and you trade Wade for Rasul Douglas midseason. I don't get that move at all. He's a good cornerback, and now they're really relying on some not so great cornerbacks. All right, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm going footsteps. Joe Flacco is my sure thing sleeper
Hey,
of the week. And listen, I know it's gross. I know it's Joe Flacco. No one wants to start Joe Flacco, but his finishes with the Browns this season, quarterback 13, quarterback 10, and quarterback 9. And that QB9 performance came against the Bears last weekend in Cleveland in not the best weather and a really good Bears defense opposite of him. Some things did have to break his way. We saw a late Amari Cooper touchdown, some big plays from him, but this Texans defense is really banged up right now, Eric. You kind of know it better than anyone. Will Anderson Jr., Malik Collins, Denzel Perryman, Blake Cashman, and Jimmy Ward all on the injury report heading into the weekend here. They're also a top 9 matchup over the last 4 weeks for quarterbacks. Zach Wilson had that amazing game in the rain in New York against this team just a couple weeks ago. Trevor Lawrence went off for QB6 in week number 12. Flacco somehow has this amazing connection with guys like David Njoku, like Amari Cooper. He's a high-end quarterback too with low-end QB1 upside for me. This week, lock him in. Footsteps, motherfucking Flacco. Here's Richard saying, I miss the insight on starting quarterback Flacco, Browning, or Love. Where would you go? Where would you go here? How are we feeling about it here for our guy Richard? Do you like Flacco? And I think I do like him, but it would be hard for me to start him over either of these two options. I will say that's tough.
It would be a tougher call for me with him and Love. We kind of talk about this to a certain extent with tight ends, right? Where like you get outside of that top tier and everyone's just sort of the same, right?
Kind of just
so
there,
like if
yeah.
you're looking for like a steady, kind of 12 to 15 point performance, the most likely player to get you that is Jordan Love of this lot. If you're looking for someone that can reach back and get you into the 20s plus, it's absolutely Joe Flacco, right? Like dude comes in off the couch and starts chucking downfield, right? Like literally he's like, look, I'm only here for a few weeks. They paid me more money than I thought I was going to be making at this age, and they've got Super Bowl aspirations. Like let's just see what we can do. And he's just putting some air underneath it. And I mean, he's got the guys, right? We talked about Amari Cooper earlier. We talked about David Njoku earlier. Elijah Moore, he's got a connection with from his days as a frisky Jet, right? Like he's got the guys that like, you put some YOLO balls up there and they can tend to come down with them. So I really like Joe Flacco in a vacuum in terms of how they're using him. And in this matchup against a completely depleted Texans defense is juicy, right? We are seeing plenty of fringy guys have ceiling performances against them. And I don't think that Joe Flacco even qualifies as fringy, right? So, I mean, I'm right here with Jamie, right? Maybe not Flacco for MVP because he's only been here for a couple of weeks. Is Joe Flacco elite? Absolutely. When I heard that they were flying him out there for a visit, I went out and put a futures on the Browns to make the Super Bowl at a nice price tag, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. I'm getting some cash out options that are already catching my interest, and we're only in week 16.
Wow, the fortitude on this guy. Would you go Flacco over Love here?
If I have to put my name on something, it's probably Love. But if I'm making this decision in my own lineup, it's Joe Flacco.
Yeah, here's what I would say. It depends where you are, Richard. If you didn't get dropped, like if no one went off on you on Thursday night, I would consider Love as the safer play. But I think Flacco has the most upside this week out of all these guys. So that's kind of what I would say. If you're shooting for upside and you need it, maybe an underdog heading into your matchup, I would go with him. How far do we go with Flacco, though? We going over Justin Fields? I think it was you. Was it you or Scott that said you like Justin Fields as potentially the week one or the QB1 in week 16?
QB number one.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think Justin Fields, you go up against a team like Arizona, he's going to run all over him. He's going to throw all over him. This is a team that's kind of, they're packing it in. They're getting ready for the holiday season. So, yeah, I'm with Jamie. Fields is a top 3 or 4 quarterback for me this week. Yeah, I'm with you. Although he didn't come through for me last week, Eric, in our guillotine league. I panic dropped Jalen Hurts because I didn't think he was going to play on Monday night. It didn't matter anyways, but yeah.
And I was over there rotating through available quarterbacks to see if I could get them to go on to waivers so that you had limited options, but didn't work out.
There we go. Well, guys, I appreciate everyone tuning in tonight. This is some great action from the chat. Really cool to see, especially on, like, I know it's a hugely busy day for everybody. We got Christmas right around the corner. We got New Year's a week, from today. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Like, the easiest way to support us, subscribe to this channel, come back, hang out with us again, and check out our website, inbetweenmedia.com. We got so much great content over there for you, whether it's fantasy sports analysis, sports betting stuff, entertainment, lifestyle. Like, we got it all for you over there at In Between Media. We just want to help you guys win championships, but also help you have a damn good time along the way. So, Eric, I know you have some other ventures outside of In Between Media, mostly Pros with Joes that still couldn't get me in the playoffs. Rigged. I don't know, maybe. And but tell us what else you got. I know you got Green Screens Media over there, and College Hoops is a brewing.
Man, just absolute lowest of the low. They expand the playoff field so half the teams get in. This guy's over here complaining that he can't make his way in.
Sorry about
Play
it.
better, my guy. Play better. Some teams got to be on the other side of the. But yeah, Bros Joe's is still off and running. We're on to our semifinals, which I'm going to try to do this from memory. Has Howard Bender facing off against. I knew I was going to mess this up from memory. Check us out on Twitter at Pros with Joes. You'll see our bracket there that include 4 fantastic fantasy analysts and co-managers. We're still raising money for the winning team's charity. So you can check out in that tweet. There is a link to our donor center so that we can make a nice little end of year donation to whoever wins this tournament. And like you mentioned, Green Screens Media, full steam ahead, right? We are about 2 weeks away from the point where college basketball really starts to take over the world. So if you want to see what we're doing over there, Green Screens Media on YouTube, Get Green Screens on Twitter. We are breaking down DFS, betting, prize picks. We're doing some weekly analysis around the AP Top 25 power rankings, headlines in the game, right? So ton of content over there. Green Screens Media.
And I will just say on Pros with Joes, maybe it's my fault. I didn't have a receiver on my team this whole year. This one of those leagues you can have a bunch of flexes and no real positions. So I had no wide receivers. I just went all running backs, tight ends, and left me a little short in the points force department. So I get it. Eric, I appreciate you so much, man. Not just making time for us today on your busy Friday ahead of the holidays, but every Friday this season and the Tuesday shows that you're on with us as well. Greatly appreciate you and this community we're building over here at In Between Media. Ismail saying just subscribe and hit that thumbs up. We appreciate you, man. That's a great little Christmas gift for us, man. Thank you guys so much. We will see you back here on Tuesday evening as we get you ready for week number 17 and the Fantasy Football Championships. Until then, enjoy your Christmas, enjoy your Hanukkah, your Kwanzaa, your winter solstice, whatever you're celebrating. Just have a damn good time, and we'll see you back here soon. Until then, you know what to do. Keep it in between, folks. Thanks.